Hey everybody, Seth with Big Rock Trees. We're just got a quick video here to explain our drip tape and how it works. Today we are using the Toro Aqua-Traxx. There's 4,000 feet that come on a roll. The emitters are every 12 inches and it's 5/8 in diameter. The maximum PSI on a 15 mil roll is 15 PSI. We do have a reducer here that slows down the flow if you were to use a water tank or a hose if your screen lines are close to your house where you're able to hook up a garden hose. So here I kind of set up a little bit of a mock setup here. So the spacing that we like to do on a double staggered row is 3-foot spacing in between the two drip tapes because you want to be within 6 inches of your cutting to allow maximum water moisture that's close to your cutting. So we like to go 3 feet spacing because your row between the two shrubs is 4 feet. So that leaves you 6 inches on both sides close to your cuttings. And then you're also about 18 inches from one ear edge of using a 6-foot fabric. So when you guys are laying down your 6-foot fabric, plan on your first drip tape is going to be 18 inches from your one edge. So when you're tilling, just measure 18 inches in, mark it up, and then lay down your first row of drip tape and 3-foot spacing in between that. And then you'll have your next drip tape here and then lay down your fabric. And we also staple about every 15 to 20 feet in a long line. Right here we have the end of our roll. So as you can see, it's really floppy, but the start of a roll and for most of the 4,000 feet. So the fabric will lay itself down and keep everything flat and hold it in place. So you won't have to worry about once you lay the fabric that the drip tape is going to be moving around. And we like to have the drip tape on the inside of the cuttings. Reason for that is the moisture from the drip tape is going to only hit the cuttings. If you were to have it on the outside, closer to the edge, now you have the potential to feed those noxious weeds that are gonna grow along the edge. So if you keep it on the inside of the 2 rows of shrubs or trees, now you're allowing maximum water to hit those trees or shrubs instead of potentially feeding those grasses that are along the edge of your fabric. And then at this point, when you've laid your drip tape and you're rolling out your fabric, you have to feel close to the edge because if for some reason the drip tape were to happen to move, you don't want to puncture it by putting a staple, or if you were to knife the edge when you go to plant your cuttings is another reason why you need to feel the fabric as you're cutting to make sure you don't puncture the drip tape halfway into your line. And typically when we're all said and done, we like to leave the drip tape about 1 foot to 1.5 feet away from the end of the fabric and then puncture a hole into the fabric and bring both lines of the drip tape up to have the connector showing so that it's easy to be able to hook up your hose or whatever water source you want to use, and so that you're able to mow and weed whack along that edge a couple times throughout the first couple summers, and so you don't end up mowing your drip line. And the easiest thing that we've found in installing this drip line is to have a chunk of rebar or some sort of strong rod and shove it through the hole here on both sides so you can hold it and walk backwards and just help it unravel. That's going to allow it to lay flat, and by walking backwards it prevents creating any kinks in your line and creating maximum water flow throughout the entire line. So here is one of the stoppers that we like to use. This would be great if you were doing a single line that you wanted to cap. So this would be on the opposite end of where your water tank is going to be. So here you want to completely turn it back, have your tube completely open, shove the tube on as far as possible, give it a little wiggle, and then turn the dial back till that's tight. And now it's locked in, ready to go, watertight. It's going to prevent any sort of dripping or leaking out the ends here. And this works great on single lines if you were to do a single row with 4-foot wide fabric if you want to do a single row of shrubs or trees. And also this works great for when you're starting a line, is you're able to put a staple in here to help hold it on the one end so it's not constantly moving as you're pulling the drip tape to set it. And as you are turning the dial here, you want to hold this drip tape to make sure it's not twisting and turning and to make sure you get a secure lock. And this also prevents any sort of dirt or mud as you're laying the drip tape from getting into this drip line. It's very important to not get any sort of dirt or debris because that may plug up the emitters or your filters as you're laying the drip tape. And then here's the second option. What we like to do when we have 2 rows of drip tape is to actually have a continuous loop of water flowing. If this line were to fill up first, it's able to work its way around and to have a continuous flow here. And so how to connect this row of drip tape is to have this emitter, slide it on, same as the other one. Roll this down. Now you have that connected. Same thing for this one. Open the side up, slide and wiggle on. Now you have this side here, open it up, slide that on. And then finally your last connector, wiggle it on. And now you have a continuous loop here. It doesn't matter which end fills up first. You can have a continuous loop and allows a little bit more water in the ends if you have a cutting farther on the end here. And we would have punctured a hole in the fabric somewhere right in here, about 6 to 8 inches away from the end here, to allow this to be actually exposed and then to have the fabric actually run out to here. So when you're mowing the grass or weed whacking along the edge, you're not able to hit this, but you're still exposed enough so you're easily able to connect this even when the fabric has been laid down. So I'm just going to create a mock-up here of what it should look like if you have your water source up here somewhere, whether it's a water tank or your hose line. And we'll actually hook it up here as soon as we get done hooking up all these pieces. So when you get done with your fabric, you'll end up puncturing the 2 holes in the fabric, running your lines up. You take it here, easily snips with a snip or scissors. So whatever you guys have, and then you open those up to be able to slide your fittings in. Elbow fitting goes on. Slide that on. Same thing over here. Wiggle it on. Tighten that on. Now these little guys, wiggle on a little piece of tubing. Screw that tight. Same thing on the other side here. Now we're going to connect the main tube to our little T. So wiggle it on again here. Same principle. Twist that on, lock it down. Same thing here. Wiggle the line. Lock it on. So now you have your connection here pieced. We have a full circle here. And so now this is what's actually going to be connected to potentially the hose. But first we want to put on the pressure regulator here. So as you guys can see here, the 15 PSI. So this gets screwed on. So that's nice and tight. So the pressure regulator is very important because even your garden hose is going to have too much pressure and it could potentially blow the line. So you definitely want to have this pressure regulator on there, especially when you're connecting a garden hose or a big water tank. And then here is the next step to the whole piece here is the filter. This is also very important because you do not want this line to clog up with any sort of debris. We actually just washed this out, but as you guys can see here, there's still a bunch of debris that is built up. So especially if you're using a water tank that has a lot of debris sediment in there, you definitely want to have this on to make sure that your line does not plug up. So this just connects very easily to this. Spin that on. And now you're ready to rock here. Connect your hose to this, filter in here. This runs to the regulator. Regulator then sets it to 15 PSI, and then this will run both lines. And then on that end, we have the continuous circle here. So we're gonna hook this up and show you guys how slow this drips and how well it's going to work. All right, so we're gonna turn on the water here. And you'll see the lines start to fill up, start to expand. Don't mind the rest of the water on the table. We had a minor blowout because the one connection I failed to connect properly. But you can see the swelling in all these lines, and you can see the slow drips. So here you can see that we have a big twist in the line. So actually you want to loosen that up. All right, so now we're gonna turn the hose back on. We had a couple loose connections before, still have a slow drip up here as you guys can see. But now you can see how quickly these lines fill up, getting any air out of the hose lines. And this slow drip you could have run for a couple hours. To soak the ground underneath the fabric and to allow those cuttings a good drink of water. And this is another great example of why you wouldn't want this on top of your fabric, because this slow drip is just going to roll off the fabric and not actually hit the cuttings. So that's why we definitely recommend putting this under the fabric instead of on top of the fabric. So we've pressurized the lines here. Sometimes we've pressurized it right after we lay the fabric, but before we've laid staples or made our X's in the fabric for our cuttings. Reasons for doing that is it's very easy to see this now and feel it, so that we don't put a knife through it now that we've done all the work to lay it down before you were to staple it in the center or create your X, which is about 6 inches away from this new drip tape. Alrighty guys, so I just wanted to talk real quick and show you guys where we get our drip tape from. So as you guys can see, this is the Aqua-Traxx drip tape from Toro. We use the 15 mil because of the multi-season use. We're going to be laying it underneath fabric, but we plan on using it for at least 2 to 3 growing seasons. After that, hopefully we would be able to move it to our next project. And then we also use the 12-inch space emitters. On a roll, it's 4,000 feet. Like I said, 15 mil, 0.45 gallons per minute per 100 feet. And it costs about $176 for a roll for 4,000 feet. So overall, it's very inexpensive to water very long lines. Now, if you go up to here this is without a pump, what you should be able to expect. So for ours at 12-inch, 0.45 gallons per minute, you should be looking for about 600 feet of level rolls. Now we've used it and pumped it even longer, downhill, gravity fed. So it works very good, especially when you can't access to a pump. This works very well, and it allows you to water a long line without individually watering cuttings. Because the emitters are every 12 inches and our spacing on our shrubs or trees is 4 to 6 feet. So within that gap, you're going to have 3 to 4 emitters soaking the ground on top of an emitter being right next to that cutting. So overall, if you have a longer line, especially if we have another summer like we had this year, then you're going to want to use some sort of watering system with a big tote that you could naturally collect water from, leave it up top on top of a hill or the highest point in your screen line, and water your cuttings the first couple growing seasons to help them out and to increase your success rate and growth rates. This drip tape is some of the easiest that we have found and easiest way to water cuttings, especially longer lines, by a central water source, gravity fed, pressure regulated. It's very easy to use, very easy to install and set up, and very cost effective way to be able to water long lines. And if you guys have any questions, give us a call at 715-829-1223 or send us an email at tom@bigrocktrees.com, and we'll see you in the next video.